I joked that she should just marry me. She said, okay, before I could take it back. She said it before I finished laughing. I had been mid-sentence, the joke half-formed, the kind of throwaway line you say when you've run out of real things to offer. I said it the way a man says something he doesn't think matters, casually, without weight, without looking at her too directly. I joked that she should just marry me, and Nora Voss said okay. Not eventually. Not after a beat where she processed it. She said it immediately, the word dropping into the air between us before I had even finished the smile on my face. Too clear. Too quiet, like the sentence had been sitting behind her teeth for months and slipped out before pride could catch it. She heard it after she said it, and that moment, the 2 seconds after she said it, when she looked at me and I looked at her, and neither of us did anything at all, that moment is the one I still think about, because that is when I understood that I had been joking about something she hadn't been. My name is Daniel Carr. I'm 34. I work in commercial furniture, sourcing, project management, the logistics of getting the right chairs into the right offices on schedule. It is not a dramatic career. Nobody asks about it at parties. I mention it, and people nod and then look for the nearest person holding drinks. I live in a ground floor apartment in a building with thin walls and a courtyard I use to drink my morning coffee when the weather allows. And the life I had built was quiet and functional and mostly fine. I was not unhappy. I was also not searching. Those two things are not the same, but for a long time I confused them. Nora lived in the apartment directly above mine. She had moved in 2 winters before this. I remember because her moving truck blocked my parking space for 6 hours, and I was preparing to be extremely reasonable about it in a way that would have taken a decade to undo. Then she knocked on my door to apologize before I could say anything, holding a bottle of wine she had pulled from whatever box was closest, label slightly torn, and she said she owed me and she knew it. She said this with the directness of someone who had run out of patience for softening things before the conversation even started. I remember thinking she had the kind of face that already knew what she thought of you. She was 31. She worked in urban planning for the city, a job that meant she spent most of her days in rooms where people disagreed about sidewalks with the energy of people who should have been disagreeing about wars. She had dark hair, she wore up most of the time, a silver ring on her right hand that she turned when she was thinking, and a gray coat that had seen several winters too many. The coat bothered me slightly. It was a good coat that had stopped being presentable, and she kept wearing it out of principle. I found this maddening. I also found it remarkable, which I chose not to examine. She kept a small cactus on her windowsill that faced the courtyard. I could see it from below every morning. I told myself I wasn't looking for it. That is not accurate. We had developed what I can only call a functional antagonism. She thought I left my bins at the wrong angle on collection days. I thought she had very specific opinions about courtyard hours. She was not wrong about the bins. I was not entirely wrong about the hours. We had worked this into a kind of comfortable, low-grade argument that served as conversation, which is a very efficient way of spending time with someone you actually like quite a lot. The night it happened, it was November, cold in the particular way November gets in that building, a chill that comes through the windows without apology. I had been having a bad week. A contract had gone sideways. A client had decided the furniture he had approved 4 months ago was suddenly wrong for the space. And I had spent 3 days being professionally calm about a situation that deserved a different response. Nora had been having her own version of the same week. A council meeting that had turned into something that required her to debrief about it standing at my kitchen counter at 9 in the evening, which had become a thing we did. She had let herself in with the key I'd given her after the time I'd locked myself out, and she'd had to come down in her pajamas to buzz me into the building. She claimed the key was for emergencies. The council debrief was apparently an emergency. I had decided not to contest this. She was describing the meeting in the way she always described bureaucratic disasters, with a specific controlled energy, like a news anchor trying to report something absurd without breaking character. The radiator was making noise. It smelled faintly of the tea she'd made without asking, which I had also decided not to contest. She was still wearing the gray coat, which she had not taken off, which meant she had come down immediately after getting home and not thought about it. I was at the counter, half listening, watching her turn the silver ring on her right hand the way she did when she was working through something. She said that 3 different committee members had sent identical emails expressing conflicting opinions about the same intersection, and nobody had noticed. I said they should have just married each other and gotten it over with. It would have been more efficient. She laughed. That was the right response. That was the expected response. Then I said it. I don't entirely know why. The week probably, the particular quality of the light in that kitchen, her coat still on, the tea she'd made like she lived there. I said she should just marry me instead, that we'd have been done with it years ago. And Nora Voss said okay, not laughing, not deflecting. Okay. Something went very quiet in the room. I want to be precise about what happened in the 3 seconds after that, because the 3 seconds mattered. I did not say anything. She did not take it back. She looked at me the way she looked at problems she had already solved. Not searching, not uncertain, just waiting for everyone else to catch up. And then she understood what was on my face, and something shifted in hers. She picked up the tea. That came out, she said, more honestly than I meant it to. I had poor survival instincts around women who wore the same coat for 3 winters out of principle. This was becoming a medical concern. Did it? I said. This is what I said. Did it? The full extent of my contribution. She set the mug down, looked at me, then at the counter, then at me again. Her voice dropped just a little. I've been thinking about saying something for a while, she said, and I've been deciding not to, repeatedly. I asked why she'd been deciding not to. She laughed once, but it came out wrong. Because of exactly this, she said, because of whatever's happening right now that I made happen by not keeping my mouth shut. Here's what I noticed. She was not stepping back. She was still standing there with the coat on and the mug in her hand, and she was not leaving. A woman who wanted to take it back would have taken it back already. She would have made a joke and given us both the exit. She had not done that. I told her she didn't have to say anything. She looked at me steadily. I know. She didn't move. I had known Nora for 2 years. I had argued with her about bins and sidewalks and the correct temperature for the courtyard on a weekday evening. I had stood in the same kitchen at various hours across 2 winters. I had noted and documented to no one the silver ring, the gray coat, the cactus on the windowsill. I had told myself repeatedly and with great confidence that this was a convenient proximity and a functional friendship, and not something I was being a complete idiot about. Something in my chest shifted, not dramatically, just enough. I said her name. She went still. Not dramatically, just still. I told her I was going to say something, and she could tell me to go back to my apartment, and she could keep the key, and we would never mention this again. I told her that was an available outcome. She looked at me for a long moment. She turned the ring twice on her finger. Then she put her hand flat on the counter and stopped. I changed which direction I checked when I walked into a room. She said quietly, about 6 months ago, I stopped looking for whoever I was supposed to be looking for. I started checking for you. And then I kept doing it. Every time I walked into somewhere you might be. She looked down for 1 second. That is not a thing I do for neighbors. I stood very still. That's the honest version, she said. I don't have the comfortable version ready. The room changed. No, I changed in it. I told her something good had happened to me in August, that I'd found out a project I'd been working on for 2 years had been approved, and the first thing I'd done was think about coming upstairs. Not to call someone, not to text, to come upstairs to her floor and knock on her door and tell her specifically. And then I'd thought about why that was my first thought, and I decided not to knock. Why not, she said. Because I decided I was reading things the way I wanted them to be, not the way they were. Because she had never said anything that was not deniable. Because I was 34 and I had made this mistake before, and I didn't want to make it with the person whose cactus I could see from my window every morning. She was quiet for a moment. I left the cactus there on purpose, she said. I moved it there in February because I knew you could see it. I didn't say anything for a moment. Then I said I didn't know what to do with that. She smiled. The small, real one, not the composed one, the one that changed the whole register of her face. Yes, you do, she said. I crossed the kitchen. She didn't step back. I told her she had a terrible coat. She said she knew. She said she'd had it for 4 years, and she was keeping it forever. I told her that was the most Nora thing she had ever said to me. She laughed, the right version, the real one, and I reached across and fixed the collar, which had been slightly wrong, and she let me, and then I didn't move away, and neither did she. The first time I touched her hand, just her hand, nothing dramatic, She looked down at it and then back up and didn't say anything at all. Somewhere above us, a pipe groaned. The radiator knocked twice. From the courtyard, someone's door swung open and then shut. The building resumed its ordinary business of being a building, completely indifferent to what had just happened in my kitchen at 9:15 on a Tuesday. She told me she was keeping the key regardless. I told her she was going to have to do something about the coat. She said she had conditions. I said I thought she might. 3 months later, she brought the cactus downstairs. She didn't announce it. She set it in my window without comment, on the sill that faced the courtyard, exactly where mine could see it from above. I noticed it there that morning with my coffee. I did not say anything about it. She was at the counter making tea she didn't ask about. I decided this was fine. A year after that, we had the argument about the bins one final time and settled it. She was right. I had always known she was right. Nothing important had changed, except we'd stopped pretending the argument was about the bins. 2 years later, when people ask how we got together, she tells them I proposed immediately and without shame. This is technically accurate and deeply misleading, and she knows it. I tell them she said yes before I could take it back. This is also accurate, and I stop there, because everything that followed from that one word is not a short story. She still has the coat. It is now 6 winters old. I have stopped mentioning it. I have not stopped thinking it is remarkable. What would you have done if someone you'd been circling for 2 years said okay to something you didn't mean seriously, and you realized in the same second that you'd been meaning it for longer than you'd admitted? And have you ever said something as a joke that turned out to be the truest thing you'd said in years? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.